Today's lesson is The Beggar. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our program. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're going to begin our lesson by talking about a story. And the story is about the beggar, or it's about a beggar. The story is entitled The Beggar. And this, I believe, is a short story by Anton Chekhov, published way back in 1887.
Yes, Anton Chekhov was a Russian writer who wrote plays and short stories in the late 19th century. He is considered one of the most important writers in the world, and he has influenced and inspired many writers who came after him. So it is very good that we are taking the opportunity to talk about one of his more interesting and significant works.
Exactly. And of course, as Helen said, he is known for his short stories and his plays. He has written dozens and dozens of short stories, and I've read some of them. And because they're translated from Russian, they are relatively easy to read. So if you're trying to increase your reading comprehension ability, you might want to try to get some of these stories. So we're talking about the beggar in today's lesson. So let's begin our lesson by listening to the first part, and then we'll come back to talk about it.
The Beggar.
On a cold winter day, a lawyer named Skvortsov was approached by a frail-looking man claiming to be an unemployed teacher in need of money to travel for a job opportunity. Skvortsov quickly realized that the same man had approached him the previous day with a different reason for begging, so he called him out for lying.
So let's dive right into the first sentence of today's story summary of The Beggar. On a cold winter day, a lawyer named Skvortsov was approached by a frail-looking man claiming to be an unemployed teacher in need of money to travel for a job opportunity. So in other words, there is a man, his name is Skvortsov, and he is a lawyer, and as he was perhaps walking down the street one day, he was approached by a man who was frail looking, which means that he looked very weak and very thin. And this frail looking man said that he was a teacher, but he didn't have a job, he was unemployed, and that he needed money so that he could travel and look for another job.
Exactly. So this, of course, happens in the winter. It's cold outside, and we've got this attorney or this lawyer. And Skvortsov quickly realized that the same man had approached him the previous day with a different reason for begging, so he called him out for lying. So, of course, Skvortsov here is a smart man, and he quickly remembered, or he realized, he knew that, hey, this guy approached me the day before. Hey, you're the guy who approached me before for money. So he called him out for lying. So here we have the phrase to call someone out for something. That means you recognize what they have done is deceitful, they're lying, they've done something bad. For example, one time I was riding in a taxi and the driver did not think I spoke Chinese, so he insulted me. He said bad things about me because he thought I didn't understand. And at the end of the ride, I called him out for it. Hey, I understood everything you said, and those are not polite things to say. So I called him out for saying those nasty things. You recognize that someone has done something bad.
Right. To call somebody out for something also has the meaning of exposure, to expose something that someone else has done that was not a good thing. So, for instance, a politician can be called out by citizens or by other members of the government for something wrong that politician has done. And in this case, Skvortsov called out the beggar for being dishonest.
Exactly. So if you call someone out, of course, you recognize the bad thing that they have done. And this is involving a person, to call out someone or to call someone out. But as a verb phrase, to call out means that you yell for some reason. Like if you get lost in a forest and you want help, you might call out for help. Help me, I'm lost. Please come and rescue me. But again here, He's called out for lying, and now the beggar is probably embarrassed and will have to explain himself. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's continue with our story in the second part.
Wishing to avoid trouble, the man, known as Lushkov, confessed that he was a former choir member who had been fired for drunkenness and admitted that lying was the only way he could find sympathy from passers-by. Skvortsov reprimanded Lushkov for being a liar and a lazy drunk, and then, priding himself on his compassion, offered the beggar work chopping wood, insisting that hard work would remedy his faults. Lushkov reluctantly agreed.
大家好，第二部分我们看到动词 confess 表示承认或是公认错误、罪行等等。例如 Drew was ashamed to confess that he did not know how to ride a bicycle. Drew 羞于承认他不知道怎么骑脚踏车。或是 Dexter confessed to the police that it was he who stole the car. Dexter 向警方坦诚是他偷了那辆车。另外将这个字字尾加上 ion 就变成了名词 confession， 指承认、招供或是告解。我们可以说 The criminal made a confession to the police that he had done the crime. 那名罪犯向警方坦诚他所犯下的罪行。也可以说 Alice made a confession that she was the one who stole the money. Alice 承认她就是偷钱的那个人。接下来我们看到单字 drunkenness， 这个字是名词，指醉酒或是酩酊。举例来说 Jim didn't feel well because of drunkenness. Jim 因为喝醉的关系，所以感觉不太舒服。或是 drunkenness may cause vomiting. 喝醉可能会引起呕吐。另外把字尾的 enness 去掉，就变成了形容词 drunk， 意思是喝醉的。例如 Laura doesn't drink because she gets drunk easily. Laura 不喝酒，因为她很容易就醉了。再来我们看到单字 passerby， 这个字是名词，指行人或是路人。举例来说 A passerby who witnessed the crime called the police. 目睹这起犯罪的路人叫了警察。或是 Wanda's loud scream alerted a passerby who stopped to help her. Wanda 的大声尖叫引起了一名路人的注意，并停下来帮助她。
So, wishing to avoid trouble, the man known as Lushkov confessed that he was a former choir member who had been fired for drunkenness and admitted that lying was the only way he could find sympathy from passers-by. So, in the previous section, we saw that Skvortsov called out Lushkov for lying because he gave a dishonest reason for needing money. So, rather than deny what he had said, Lushkov now told the truth because he wanted to avoid trouble. So he confessed. To confess means to admit that you have done something wrong. So he admitted that he was a former choir member who had been fired for drunkenness. A choir member is somebody who sings as part of a group. So this group of singers usually perform in a church and sometimes in a school. So he was a choir member, which means he sang as part of a choir. But he was fired from that choir for drunkenness. Drunkenness is the state of being drunk. When you've had too much to drink, you become drunk, and your state of being drunk is your drunkenness. So, of course, nobody who is a part of a choir wants a member who drinks too much and perhaps forget the parts that they are supposed to sing. So he was fired from the choir. And now the only way that he can find money was through the sympathy from passers-by.
So sympathy here just refers to feelings that people have for other people because they feel sorry for them. They realize that they're in a bad situation, so you feel sympathy for them. Oh, I feel sorry for you. You lost your mother or something like that. I feel sympathy for you. I feel sorry for you. And of course, a person on the street who is passing by is called a passerby. And be careful with this word because the plural form is passers-by. You don't say passerbys, you say passers-by. One passerby, two passers-by.
So after Lushkov has said this to Skvortsov, Skvortsov reprimanded Lushkov for being a liar and a lazy drunk, and then, priding himself on his compassion, offered the beggar work chopping wood, insisting that hard work would remedy his faults. So first of all, after hearing what Lushkov said, Skvortsov reprimanded him. When you reprimand someone, you tell them that they have done something wrong. So you lecture them. You make sure that they know that what they did was wrong. So he reprimanded Lushkov for being a liar and for being a drunk. And then this is telling us something about Skvortsov's own character. He prides himself on his compassion. When you pride yourself on something, it means that you are proud of a particular quality that you have. So Skvortsov is someone who is proud of the fact or of the belief that he has a lot of compassion or that he feels sympathy for other people. So this is something he believes himself to possess. So Skvortsov offers the beggar some work chopping wood, and he adds that hard work is the only way to remedy a person's fault. To remedy means to improve a bad situation or to deal with a problem. In other words, Skvortsov is saying the only way that you can change as a person to no longer be a drunkard and to no longer lie is through hard work.
Here, remedy is being used as a verb. That means to solve some kind of problem. Remedy as a noun could refer to some sort of medicine or some kind of process in which you can solve a problem or get rid of a problem. Here's my headache remedy, for example. It will help your headache. But here, remedy is being used as a verb. It would get rid of his faults. It would remedy the faults. It would eliminate the faults from the face of the earth.
Yes, and Lushkov, after hearing Skvortsov's offer of a job, reluctantly agreed. So Lushkov agreed to follow Skvortsov's advice of hard work, of finding hard work and trying to become a better person through hard work. However, he reluctantly agreed, which means that he was slow and not very enthusiastic to agree. He wasn't really happy with Skvortsov's suggestion, perhaps because he doesn't want to do hard work, so he was reluctant about it. I could also say that a group of people asked me to make a speech, and I reluctantly agreed because I don't like speaking in front of a lot of people, but I had to, so I agreed, but I did so reluctantly.
Exactly. So here, reluctantly is an adverb, and it's, of course, modifying the word agree. And he did not want to do this job. If you're a beggar, of course, you need to get past the shame of being a beggar. But once you get past that, it's probably pretty easy to make money. Just stick out your hand. Can you give me some money? There's not much work in that. But if you have to chop wood, ooh, that requires a lot of work. You might sweat. You might get all sore and stuff like that. So he didn't really want to take this job as a woodcutter. So he reluctantly agreed, yeah, okay, I can chop wood and make some money. I guess I better do this, even though I'd rather not. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third part and listen first.
At home, Skvortsov asked his cook to show Lushkov to the woodpile. He watched through the window as the cook tossed an axe at Lushkov's feet, seemingly disgusted at the man's presence. For a moment, Skvortsov felt bad about sending such a weak man to do hard labor in the cold, but the thought quickly passed. An hour later, the cook came in to report that all the wood had been chopped. Pleased, Skvortsov paid Lushkov and invited him to come back once a month for more work.
"最后第三部分，我们看到副词 seemingly， 意思是看似或是貌似。举例来说 ，There are seemingly dozens of different uses for that simple tool。那个简单的工具看起来好像有许多不同的用法。或是 The lawyer's seemingly innocent question was actually carefully considered。律师问的看似简单的问题， 其实都是经过谨慎思考的。另外，把这个单字字尾的 ing-ly 去掉，就变成了动词 seem， 指似乎或是好像。像是 Luther seems to eat more when he's unhappy。 Luther 不高兴的时候似乎吃比较多。也可以说 It seems that the car won't be fixed until Thursday。 车子似乎要到星期四才修得好。
So Lushkov has agreed to Skvortsov's offer of a job. Now at home, Skvortsov asked his cook to show Lushkov to the wood pile. So Lushkov is about to chop wood, and Skvortsov asked his cook, he being a lawyer and quite a wealthy or well-to-do person, has a cook at home, and he asked the cook to show Lushkov where the wood pile is so that Lushkov can begin chopping wood.
Right, so when you cut down a tree, of course, you have large pieces of wood, and they need to be cut into smaller pieces in order to put them in the fireplace or to use them for cooking. So the cook here showed Lushkov where the wood pile was, and he watched through the window as the cook tossed an axe at Lushkov's feet. So remember, this is the lawyer Skvortsov watching what's happening here, and Skvortsov sees the cook throw the axe at Lushkov's feet. Here, take this axe and start working. And of course, it seemed to Skvortsov that the cook was disgusted at the man's presence. So if you're disgusted by something, that means you think it's just really bad, it's really unbearable, it's something you don't really like looking at. You could be disgusted at someone's behavior. You know, Don's behavior at the meeting was disgusting, so I was disgusted when I saw him saying things to the boss like that. And, of course, he was seemingly disgusted at the man's presence. So here it looked like the cook was disgusted at the man's presence. It looked like the cook did not like the beggar at all.
Right. And why did it look like the cook did not like the beggar? Because the cook threw the axe at Lushkov's feet instead of giving it to him politely. And that's why the cook seemed disgusted at Lushkov's presence. So for a moment, Skvortsov felt bad about sending such a weak man to do hard labor in the cold, but the thought quickly passed. In other words, for a moment, Skvortsov had second thoughts. He thought, maybe it wasn't such a good idea to send Lushkov to do hard labor because, after all, he's not in the best state of health. He was frail looking, if we remember at the beginning, the description of Lushkov, and now he has to chop wood. And the cook is probably thinking, what is this frail looking drunkard doing here? He's probably not going to be able to do the job he's supposed to. So the cook throws the axe at his feet, seemingly disgusted.
Right, so Skvortsov probably thought that he was doing the man a favor by offering a job to cut wood. But then he later started feeling sorry for the man. He does look like a weak man, and I should not make him work outside in the cold. Remember, it's in the winter in Russia where it can be really, really cold. But then the thought quickly passed, well, you know, this guy should be grateful for having this job opportunity. And an hour later, the cook came in to report that all the wood had been chopped. So Skvortsov was pleased. So here it says pleased, satisfied. Skvortsov paid Lushkov and invited him to come back once a month for more work. So it looks like this is going to be a good relationship here. Lushkov will come over once a month to cut some wood and make a little money, and hopefully he'll be able to eventually get himself back into his original condition and get a job again.
That's right. So far, everything seems to be going very smoothly because Lushkov apparently was able to do the job he was asked to do very quickly and efficiently, at least according to the cook's report.
Okay, so that's where we're going to stop our lesson for now. And before we say goodbye, we'd like to hear from our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。 课文第二部分他有提到 Lushkov 承认说谎是他能获得路人同情的唯一方法。好，文中他用到 sympathy 这个名词来表达同情、同情心。那同样在这个段落呢，也有用到一个意思相近的名词叫 compassion， 它是指同情、恻隐之心。如果你去查字典呢，就会发现 sympathy 主要是同情的感觉， the feeling of being sorry for somebody， 对别人的痛苦不幸是感到遗憾的那种感觉。那么 compassion 则是想要帮助别人减轻痛苦不幸的感觉，想要帮忙的那种感受， the feeling of wanting to help somebody， 所以是有稍微差异的。那其实 sympathy 和 compassion 这两个单字呢，是来自同一类的字根哦。那我们来学习PATH 或者是 PAT 或者是 PASS 这一类的字根呢，它就表示 feel或者是 suffer， 也就是感受啊、遭受、受苦的意思。那么在 sympathy 这个字当中，它的字首 SYM 是来自 SYN， SYN 碰到字母 B、M 或者是 P 就会拼作 SYM。 好，那这个字首呢，它是表达相同。那么字根 PATH 表示感受， Y 是名词字尾，那相同感受应该可以联想到 sympathy， 它有同情、同情心的意思。好，在 compassion 这个字当中，那它的字首 COM 表示 with 或是 together 的意思。那么字根 PASS 带有 suffer 的语义，所以你想想看 to suffer together with 一起受苦、一起承受，应该很容易联想到 compassion 是表达想帮助他人的那种同情、怜悯或是恻隐之心。好，那另外补充一下，英文里面也有不少 PATHY 结尾的单字哦，以下要帮同学们做补充。第一个补充的是 empathy， 它的字首 EM 是表达进入，字根 PATH 是感觉， Y 是名词字尾。当我们设身处地，把自己放进别人的处境当中，去进入别人内心，去感觉别人的感受，这样应该可以想到 empathy 它有同理心啊、同感、共鸣的意思。好，那么第二个补充的是 apathy， APATHY， 它的字首 A 是表达缺乏， PATH 感觉， Y 是名词字尾，那缺乏感觉应该很容易联想到 apathy， 它有这个冷漠、冷淡的意思。第三个补充的是 antipathy， ANTIPATHY， 它的字首 ANTI 表示相反，那么 PATH 感觉， Y 是名词字尾，合在一起 antipathy 就是反感、厌恶的意思。第四个要补充的是 telepathy， TELEPATHY， 那这个字首 TELE 就表示遥远，那么 PATH 感受、感知， Y 是名词字尾，那我们在远处就能感受、感应到事物，这个 telepathy 它具有心电感应的意思哦。好，那以上是今天的重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Confess. Justin confessed to having eaten the entire cake by himself. Choir. We spent the evening at the theater listening to the choir perform. Sympathy. I didn't expect him to solve my problems. I just wanted a little sympathy. Remedy. Unfortunately, the medicine did nothing to remedy my sore throat. Reluctantly. Eve reluctantly emptied her pockets when her mom told her to. Disgusted. The health inspector was disgusted by the state of the kitchen.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoyed reading along with us. I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.